This is your Chargers linebacker, Deion Henley, and you're tuning in with Chargers Unleashed.
Welcome to another edition of Chargers Unleashed. Jake Hefner and Dan Wolkenstein here with you from the LAFB Network. If this is your first time tuning in to the show, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Dan Wolkenstein, mahalo, sir. I don't know what time zone I'm in. It is.
You don't know what island you're on.
Apparently, I forgot what island I was going on. It is 6:30 local time here in Kauai. Dan Wolkenstein and I, obviously, in terms of our scheduling, was hoping to get this Chargers-Bengals preview to you earlier on in the week, but time didn't permit until right now. So what better way than 6:30 in the morning, my time, I haven't slept, I feel like, for the last 4 hours, than to do a live show previewing the Chargers and Bengals matchup. Lots to get into. Obviously, we're going to get into all of your guys' questions, the key matchups as it relates to this game. Dan, I love the fact that I get to watch this game at 3:00 local time. There's something just inherently beautiful about that, to watch Sunday night football at 3:00. It's a good thing here.
Yes. Jake's got the mahaloitis. He's on vacation, doesn't really know where he is. Literally, peek behind the curtain here, folks. Jake tells me yesterday that he's on vacation, which I knew he was going on vacation. Tells me where he's going, and I realized halfway through the day, I'm like, wait. The place he told me he's going is not on that same island that he said he was going, because he told me what hotel he was at.
That's right.
Turns out he forgot what hotel. He knew the hotel, forgot the island. But at least you got Hawaii right, which is what matters.
The worst part about this is I've been at this same hotel and this same island already once, and I still couldn't remember which one it was. So that's part of the beauty of everything.
But we appreciate you, Jake. That's dedication. Please say thank you to your better half for allowing us to do a live show while you're on vacation.
When she wakes up, I will make sure to say that you said thank you.
Good. Tons to get into. We have a ton of voicemails here. I don't know if we're going to be able to get to all of them. There's 7 from this last week win over Tennessee. Big matchup against the Bengals. This is a live one. You know how it goes. If you have any comments, questions, thoughts, put them in the chat. We'll do our best. We have a giveaway going on right now. We'll be announcing it tomorrow. The storm is coming. We've got a hat from the merch store at SoFi. Ethan, I heard the SoFi Stadium merch is a great spot to hit up. What are some of the unique stuff there? Yes, the hat that I'm referring to is one of them. I don't know what it is, but we have it. Tons of unique things. Next time I go to a game, I will take some pictures. Yes, 100%. There are some SoFi exclusive merchandise there. Go to XR pinned tweet. You can see the giveaway. Enter for your chance to win the hat. We'll announce it tomorrow before the game. Jake, before we do all of the fun, got to pay the bills. Let's talk about our friends.
Obviously. So we want to remind everybody that BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline is every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. You think you know your stuff? Get in on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at a weekly prizes of up to $200,000. When the game is over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or on one with one of our 150 slot games. Head on over to the website today to get in on the action. That's betonline.ag. BetOnline, the game starts here.
So, Jake, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins and company come into town. Primetime matchup versus the Los Angeles Chargers.
That's great timing, isn't it?
Yeah, love that T. Higgins comes back today or tomorrow. The storylines are abundant in this game, and we'll kind of go through offense versus defense, kind of where these teams sit. But this is a must-win game for the Bengals, and one could argue not quite a must-win, but set the tone win for this Chargers team going into this stretch of games that really can make or break this season. If the Chargers can, I think, survive the next 5 with a winning record, I think they're ready to rock because the end of the schedule looks good. But tall task. This Chargers defense has not gone up against an offense like Cincinnati. Same could be said the other way. Cincinnati has not gone up against a defense like the Chargers. So many fun ones on this to kind of think through. Jake, we'll get to the voicemails intermittently, but 50,000-foot view. What are your thoughts on this game?
I knew that was the question that was coming.
It's almost like we do a podcast together.
If great minds think alike, the intuition is just right there. As it relates to this game. You know, you kind of touched on it, and I see a couple of people talking about the very same narrative in the comments section here. You know, the Chargers have done a good job. The 3 out of their last 4 that they've won, that was the soft part of their schedule. And when you look at the teams that they have lost against, pretty darn good teams. Chiefs, Pittsburgh, Arizona Cardinals for what they've been doing. And a lot of people would say, it was like, okay, well, you know, the Chargers win record is this against these type of teams. I think it's a different story than that, because you could look at those first 2 weeks against the Raiders and the Panthers, and the Chargers were a different offense than what they were currently as it stands right now. And then when you look at it defensively, go back to that Chiefs game, considering the injuries that the Chargers had on their offensive line, some of the players that they were missing on the defensive side of the ball, and to keep the Super Bowl champs under 20 points, that's still impressive given the circumstances that took place throughout that game. And again, have only allowed 20 points once to the Pittsburgh Steelers this entire season. So once again, Jesse Minter is just doing things that Charger fans are not used to seeing from a defensive side of the ball. And yes, to your point, Dan, this is a tall task for the Chargers coming up against a desperate Cincinnati Bengals team that has a plethora of weapons to distribute the ball. You've obviously seen what they've been able to do in 2 games against Baltimore. Even in losses, you just see the amount of offense that they were able to put up. But on the flip side of that, the Baltimore Ravens defense plays differently than the Los Angeles Chargers defense. And I think that Jesse Minter kind of summed it up perfectly when he was talking, when someone asked him about the idea of planning against Jamar Chase for this week. And he basically just said, sleepless nights. That's what we're doing. Sleepless nights. But no, it's a big task for the Chargers. Honestly, I think it's fortunate that they're getting this game at home. I think, to your point, because it's in prime time, it's a opportunity for them to build on what they've done over these past 3 weeks. I think you're going to see more of this tick through Justin Herbert, not to the fact that they're going to want to stop. Again, it's kind of the same old formula. The Chargers are still going to want to dedicate themselves to running the football. The way that they have been putting the ball more in Justin Herbert's hands over the last month has, and the way that, and how efficiently he has been playing on top of that. They quoted him as Football Justin earlier this week. I think we're going to see Football Justin big time this week against the Cincinnati Bengals.
This is going to be a pivotal, is an understatement, but it's a juicy matchup in a lot of regards. And I wanted to kind of set the stage of this game with this chart. And it kind of just shows the landscape, excuse me, of the NFL, and kind of shows the tiers of teams. This is according to rbsdm.com, which love using their stuff. Top right is usually the good side. Bottom right, not so bad. Top left, not so bad. Bottom left is terrible. And you see the Chargers are inching in that top right category, which means their defense is balling up here at the top with the Minnesota Vikings. And their offense is a little bit above average. Looking at the other team, though, Bengals, offense going right, balling, defense not. So you can kind of start to see how this team lines up against the Cincinnati Bengals. We know the Cincinnati Bengals offense is star-studded, and Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow is having an MVP season. Jamar Chase is like breaking records. They haven't gone up against a defense like this. And this is one of those, like, which one of these things will break? Will the Bengals offense struggle against a great defense, or will the Chargers defense struggle against a great offense? Now, I would argue the Chargers team overall is balanced. Their defense is good, very good. Their offense is above average. Flip it the other way. Bengals offense, great. Defense, bad. So talk about 3 phases: offense, defense, special teams. I'll say 4 and add coaching to that. I think Chargers have 3 of the 4. Will it turn into a win? We'll find out. That's why Jim Harbaugh and Jesse Minter are here.
Yeah, let's get into this. Let's break it down. Let's answer some questions. Let's answer some voicemails.
Folks in the chat, if you have any questions, let us know. We'll sprinkle in some voicemails here throughout the show as well. Jake, let's do our first voicemail.
Yes.
Let's get to, again, we have 7 of these. I don't know if we're going to be able to get to all of them.
For context, these were also post last week's win, correct?
Correct.
All right.
Hey, Chargers Unleashed, what's going on? This is Gerald Garrow once again, G Money from Connecticut, Windsor, Connecticut. And I just want to say the Chargers are continuing to roll. Just heard they won again. They win 27-10 over the Titans. They take care of business like they should. I'm very excited what this Charger team is doing right now. 4 wins the last 5 games since the bye week. Justin Herbert's playing out of his mind. The defense was awesome today, 7 sacks. I mean, another game giving up less than 20 points. The running game was very solid. I thought the return of Gus Edwards was a big deal. You know, JK has been awesome. It's been a great story. But now with Gus finally healthy, 100%, he ran great, about like 5-6 yards a carry. And and JK, you got Thunder and Lightning, which is awesome. The receivers, about Ladd, but Quentin with 5 touchdowns. He's really improved from year 1 to year 2.
G-Money, there's about a minute and a half left of your voice, so we need to help us out a bit here. Keep it to 30 seconds or so. But G-Money from Connecticut, thank you. Jake, the overall sentiment is Chargers team is looking better and better. They look well-rounded. Thunder and Lightning. Gus Edwards resurgence, by the way, this past week.
Yeah, he looked angry.
Justin Herbert is playing like an MVP caliber player. Stats don't matter. Look, use your eyes. Justin Herbert has been balling.
Yeah, let's kind of transition it into, because a bulk of that was obviously talking about the Chargers offense, how efficient it looked. J-Money mentioned Gus Edwards coming back. I think that gave a jolt to the Chargers running game. Dan, kind of like a little bit of a side note, Scott Matlock is getting better and better every week at the fullback spot. You saw some of those highlights in him laying some key blocks that were able to spring, whether it was JK or Gus Edwards up the middle, which the Chargers haven't had much success running up the interior. It's mainly, if you're going to the left side to Rashawn Slater's side, there's a reason that you're going to that side, because your blocking lanes are going to be pretty good going to the left side. But overall, you end up seeing, again, the emergence of and growth of Quentin Johnston in this offense. I still like the connection and the way that they have essentially been utilizing Will Dissly sparingly, more so in the pass game over the last several weeks with Greg Roman's tweaks of the offense. Ladd McConkey is still just being Ladd McConkey every single week, and it's a great thing to see. We were all hoping 2 weeks ago that we were going to see the debut of DJ Chark. That didn't happen 2 weeks ago. Then last week, we know that he's activated. So everybody's like, okay, let's see what this offense is like. And he only played a handful of snaps. So still, it seems like we're repeating this question to say we have still not seen this Chargers offense in its entirety with all of its cachet of weapons on the field at the same time producing with Justin Herbert. So it's still that mystery that is out there in terms of what this offense could become. And with it, as efficient as Justin Herbert is currently playing right now, he has just been locked in since that ankle injury has now been behind him. You see what he is able to do mobility-wise in the pocket and how that is able to change the course of Chargers drives, the course of the game, how defenses are able to be put back on their heels because they have to be aware of that. And that opens up the play action a lot more. And that obviously gets running lanes open, that gets receiving lanes open on top of that. So you got to give it to Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh that since the bye week, they have course corrected and adjusted in a way that they understand what is going to benefit this offense more so. And you got to give credit to Jim Harbaugh, because as much as we have talked about what his mentality was, and we knew it from before he even set foot on the field of what he was going to want to do. And for those first 2 weeks, that was the plan that was carried out. And the Chargers got 2 victories over it by letting the run game dictate the pace. But I think they've kind of adapted now to saying, look, we can become a more balanced offense. And when Justin Herbert is playing this way, we know that we could put that game on his shoulders and he can go out and get us a win.
I mean, think about the quarterback matchup right now. And again, it's a team game. But if we're looking at just the quarterbacks alone, we got Joe Burrow, who's got 24 touchdowns, just 4 interceptions with a quarterback rating of 108.1, going up against a Justin Herbert, who's got a quarterback rating of 103.2 with 11 touchdowns and just 1 interception. And again, don't just look at the stats. look at the interceptions, quote unquote, that Justin Herbert is throwing. These are touchdowns that are turning into incompletions because of drops or whatever. These quarterbacks are both MVP caliber plays every play. So make no mistake, this is a primetime matchup. That's why it was flexed. And when you look at the Chargers offense, because that's where we're starting first, Chargers offense versus the Bengals defense, I think everyone has told you countless times about the Trey Hendrickson breakout. I mean, the guy is an absolute freak. And you go look at like his numbers compared to the rest of the team's numbers, and it's like breaking the scale on his own team. For example, he's got the most quarterback hits, the most tackles for loss, the most sacks of the entire team. But it's like not even close. Trey Hendrickson, 22 quarterback hits so far this season, which is insanity. The next closest, Sam Hubbard with just 8. Joseph Asai with 5. Tackles for a loss, Trey Hendrickson, 12. The next closest, Mike Hilton with 4. Sacks, Trey Hendrickson, 11. The next closest, Sam Hubbard with just 2. This is the Trey Hendrickson show. Luckily for the Chargers, they've got 2 tackles. If they can stop Trey Hendrickson, no one else really on the Bengals defense is doing much. Now, is that, what's the term? Is that bad juju to be able to start saying this stuff because then someone else is going to do something? Maybe.
Don't do it.
But so far this season, they go the way of Trey Hendrickson. And so Chargers kind of set out this path earlier on in the offseason when they go and draft Joe Alt, number 5 overall. He has been as advertised. The tackles for the Chargers have been studs. And for games like this. And it's wild. Do you think about how many dominant edge rushers this Charger team has gone up against this year already? Like they just keep coming. And it's just the current state of the NFL. If you don't have dominant edge rushers, you're not winning football games. And teams are getting more and more of them.
I'll agree with some of that because we know what the weakness is of this Chargers offensive line, and that's the interior.
Sure.
So when you look at certain edge players, you could supplant that by running stunts, getting interior pressure. You don't always need that as it relates to this Chargers team in terms of getting penetration, i.e. see last week against the Titans or previous weeks in terms of what was coming from the interior. But to your point, Dan, yeah, Trey Hendrickson has just been on fire this entire season. And when you look at the rest of the Bengals defensive line and how it shakes out, you've got Sheldon Rankins, you've got B.J. Hill, and as you mentioned, Sam Hubbard. This is, even though they're not performing to the level that Trey Hendrickson has been playing this year, I still feel that schematically, you can try to find ways to exploit the Chargers interior the way that Bradley Bozeman, Zion Johnson, and we'll see who's playing right guard this week. We don't know, but it was kind of teased a little bit that it could go one way or the other between Trey Pipkins or Jamari Sawyer, but time will tell on that to see who gets the right guard spot this week. But to your point, Dan, so what is your scheme as it relates to this defensive line? Do I think that the Chargers offensive line can hold? Yes, I do. I think that if you were to put Will Dissly basically in a situation where you're chipping Trey Hendrickson almost every single play, I think you can do a lot to take away this pass rush. The Chargers interior obviously just has to hold up. I think running the ball, I think you can find success doing that a lot this week. I think you can actually find success in balance. You look beyond the Bengals defensive line, Dan, there's a lot of places that you could exploit. The one spot that jumps out is obviously Cam Taylor-Britt, who leads the team in terms of receptions, yards, and touchdowns that he has given up on this team. So I'm sure Justin Herbert is going to be looking to target that area of the field, whichever wide receiver is going to be there. And if you're able to obviously stay ahead of the sticks, this has been the same exact motto that the Chargers have lived by. And this is when they've been the most productive and the most efficient and ultimately getting out their wins. When they're staying ahead of the sticks and when they're putting themselves in third and short situations, they can keep drives alive. And when you have Justin Herbert playing the way that he's playing right now, I think you're going to be able to find a number of ways to exploit this matchup. So I think you've obviously seen the likes of the Baltimore Ravens do this and previous teams do this. And it is really wild considering the fact of, we'll talk about the Cincinnati Bengals offense here in a second, but just as a team overall, considering some of the shootouts that the Bengals have been in, that they currently have the record that they have right now. I don't think that their record is entirely telling the entire story of what their team actually is. So it's still going to be a challenge either way. And we've talked about this Chargers team and how good they've been defensively. This may be the first game where you see an opposing team go over 20 points against the Chargers defense, and it could find themselves in a shootout situation given the fact of what the Bengals are loaded on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, people said in the chat earlier, and I probably would agree with them. Like, I think no matter what, the Chargers aren't going to get any credit. If the Chargers win this game, it's another sub 500 opponent that they beat. No one's going to talk about it. If they lose, they lost to a sub 500 Joe Burrow team. Like, I'm saying nationally.
You know what? I don't agree with that. I think if
you think if they win this game, people are going to be like, Chargers are contenders.
Yes, and here's why. And specifically for what I just said in terms of the team being indicative of their record. I mean, again, we'll talk about this more in context, but Joe Burrow, T. Higgins coming back, Jamar Chase, the way that he's playing, Chase Brown, offensively,
totally.
That is a unit for any team to go up and stop.
I'm just talking nationally. People that just look at scoreboards and stats and they see 4 and 7 if they lose.
I think it's from the standpoint to say there was a reason this game was flexed to primetime for a number of different reasons. But for the Chargers, I think given the national perception and some of what people have been talking about in the chat to say like, oh, they haven't played a tough game or this, that, and the other. I think this is a statement game, Dan. I don't think that the record in terms of beating the Bengals in terms of where they currently stand is indicative to the Chargers beating them now when they have when the Bengals are going to have basically a full complement of their offense where other teams the past 2 or 3 weeks haven't had to face up against that. I think this is a huge statement game for the Chargers if they win. And people can say whatever they want, but I do not fall into that category of thinking that this is not a big deal if the Chargers do not win this game. I think it's indicative of the statement that they're going to make for the next 3 weeks that they're going to play tough teams. And in terms of getting to their playoff chances, because the Bengals still mathematically are in this and they're desperate. And when you can beat a team like that with the talent that they have, it's a big deal.
Folks in the chat, let us know what you're drinking early in the morning. I got a latte. I showed proof, Jake, that I could actually make these things on X. I agree with you. It is a statement game for this Chargers team. What I fear is what we'll see if they lose or win, what we saw against the Cardinals. Remember when the Chargers lost that Cardinals team? And yes, they should have won that game. And I get it. But people were acting as if they lost to a chump Cardinals team. Fast forward, that Cardinals team is winning their division right now. The Bengals are, again, record-wise, aren't looking great right now. But that is a damn good football team. And they should not be where they're at. And I just hope that if the Chargers can win this game, folks can recognize 7-3 is 7-3 is 7-3. Regardless.
Chargers don't make the schedule.
And Chargers don't go 7-3 often. That's not something that we're used to seeing. Joe Burrow is that dude, though. Like, we'll get to the offense in a second, but people in the chat were talking about what we see as kind of the offensive, keys to this game. People were asking about Justin Herbert's legs. G-Pal Money. How much do y'all think Herbert's legs will impact this game? A ton. I tweeted last week after the Titans game, or during the Titans game, we have not seen this type of Justin Herbert before. And people can say, oh my gosh, Justin Herbert's been great for so... I'm not saying we haven't seen a great Justin Herbert, but a Justin Herbert who is willing and able, coaching and health, to use his legs alongside of the rocket arm and the precision passing and the intelligence that he has. And you saw how effective that was in that Tennessee game. And that style of game is what we're so frustrated watching the likes of the Kansas City Chiefs or of the Baltimore Ravens, when you seem to have everything figured out, and then Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes scrambles for 7 first down, moves the chains, and it's debilitating. That's the style of offense that Justin Herbert can bring, and now healthy since the bye has been bringing. And I actually find it refreshing that this Chargers offense has been able to go 6-3, all things considered, and DJ Chark hasn't done anything. Anything. And a part of this is like, maybe they're just kind of like saving it for the games that are supposed to be tough. Like, why bring everything out of the bag if they don't need to? And Greg Roman kind of alluded to that, where there's a lot more things in the hopper this offense can do. And they're starting to realize what they can and can't do. So I'm excited. Again, this team is learning as it's going. This is a brand new offense. And people say offense takes longer than defense does. But people were giving a lot of shade to Greg Roman early on. This team would be scoring many more points since the bye if some folks caught it. I'll put it that way. So got to give Greg Roman credit. Anything else for the Chargers offense in terms of keys? Obviously, Herbert's legs, I think, will be important. I think Ladd McConkey can cook in this game for sure. I do think that we're going to see a deep shot or two, like a good one.
Absolutely.
Like a 50-plus yard, either. This could be a DJ Chark game. This could be. But, and also real quick, EJ, quietly, 5 touchdowns. There was a time there where Keenan Allen was only scoring 6 touchdowns, and that was Keenan Allen in an entire season. He went and got 7. I think he got 8 in his career 1 year. 5 touchdowns in a year is pretty good. It's pretty good, especially for someone everyone considered a bust. If they can protect Justin Herbert, if they can be balanced and run the football and dominate in the second half.
It's their formula.
And the fact that we know... Jake, did you hear what you just said?
It's their formula.
Do you remember last year or the year before? What the F was their formula?
Let's see if I can remember their formula properly. Let's see. That was for a long period of time. The streak was not being able to score a second half touchdown, or what was it? The dreaded third quarter that we weren't able to put up any points.
No adjustments.
Inefficiencies on offense, not prepared properly, no adjustments from half to half. Basically, anything negative that you could say was the Chargers' identity for the better part of the last 3.5 years.
We literally didn't see an identity. All year last year, we were waiting. And two games into the season this year, we're talking like we see the defense, we see the offense, we see the coaching impact. Jake, let's get to the voicemail real quick before we get to the defense of the Chargers versus the Bengals. Let's hear what they say.
Hey, this is Rob from Milwaukee. Thanks for taking my call. I'll just say this. It's looking like Justin Herbert's having fun out there, which is great to see. He's just all over the place, killing it. It's good to see him slinging the ball the way he is and also having fun doing it. My question to you guys is with Trey Pipkins out and Jamar Sawyer in at right guard, the offensive line looks pretty good. That pass to QJ, he had over 4 or 5 seconds to throw that ball. So the question is what is your assessment of the offensive line now after 9 weeks of play? Thanks.
I think this is something that's been on the mind for Charger fans for the bulk of this week is you had a rotation at right guard when Trey Pipkins was out for that game between Jamar Sawyer and Foster Sarell. And Jamar Sawyer playing the bulk of the snaps and Foster Sarell playing a handful of snaps did not surrender, Dan, a single pressure from the right guard spot. So what does that mean? Well, Trey Pipkins is back to playing in a limited capacity this week. I believe he was officially designated as questionable, if I'm right. But there was no confirm nor deny whether or not Trey Pipkins is going to be the starting right guard for this upcoming matchup against the Titans. And may Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh go with the hot hand, just given what was present last week? Who knows? I don't know. I think that was a great sign, specifically from a backup standpoint, that you could say, oh, okay, so for some depth, Jamar Sawyer, who has played sparingly in certain situations throughout early part of this year, but this is the bulk that he has played this season and looked damn good in doing it. So it's going to come down to a coaching decision because obviously Trey Pipkins, despite what anybody wants to think of his play performance, he still has the most camaraderie with the rest of this offensive line as it currently stands right now. However, there is a case to be made that Jamar Sawyer could suit up for the starting right guard position upcoming, and you would hope to see a repeat performance of what we saw against the Tennessee Titans.
Pablo says, "Sup, Pappy? Happy Saturday, almost Sunday, fun day. Absolutely." Bold prediction from DJ Chark touchdown from Chris de Guzman. Let's see. Chad says Peter Schrager is a buffoon.
There it is.
Is a buffoon saying Herbert sucked in Arizona. That's what Dan's saying. Box score readers. Yeah, anyone says that Justin Herbert sucked in that game didn't watch the game. Period. Like I can't defend that. Let's see. Anything else before we switch over to the Minter Storm versus Joe Burrow, who's been balling?
Let's go.
Jesse Minter. Do you remember? I remember where I was when Jesse Minter was announced.
I remember.
I was in the airport. I was in the airport.
I was in the gym.
And I was screaming when the Chargers got Jesse Minter. I knew how important Jesse Minter was and how dominant. We had folks from Michigan tell us about Jesse Minter. Trevor McHugh told us about the genius that is Jesse Minter. And
Trevor was right on the money.
Right on the money. You don't often see first-time coordinators coming from college. Again, he's been in the NFL before, but first-time defensive coordinator in the NFL. Flip a script as well as you have seen Jesse Minter with this Chargers defense. I can't remember, genuinely, the last time a defense with, again, there's some new faces on this team, obviously, especially in the secondary. But the cornerstones are the same. And Jesse Minter has completely turned what was one of the worst defenses statistically into one of the best defenses statistically. And there's a difference, and I forget what I was listening to the other day, but what I think resonated me with most is there's a difference between coaching and teaching. In the previous regime, good coaching, not good teaching, clearly. Jesse Minter, good coaching plus good teaching. It translates. And you're seeing it on the football field. And how, I use the word connected, how connected this Chargers defense is so foreign to me. It is so foreign to me. And now going up against a lethal offense. And again, lethal. Folks who don't know about the Bengals offense, go watch that Baltimore game. They should have won. Arguably the best quarterback in the NFL right now. Arguably the best receiver in the NFL. They get another one in T. Higgins back this week. Their defense has let them down. But Jesse Minter's got a tall task. This Chargers team, though, is rounding in the form. And what I like about it is its versatility. It can come from anywhere. They have so many folks in secondary that they can cycle through. What do you make of this one? What's the key to the Chargers defense? What do you do to stop them?
Dan, back to your point where you're talking about the connectivity. You know, there's not a lot of things that I agree with Michael Lombardi on in terms of just his general commentary. But when he was on the Pat McAfee show way back during the offseason, he said this exact same thing when it came to what Jim Harbaugh was going to bring to the Chargers as a team, as a whole. And it wasn't going to be because the Chargers, he was talking about the difference between talent and just teams that play connected together. And we've seen the teams when they've had a plethora of talent as it relates to the Chargers. And we've seen the results of that. And Michael Lombardi said it then. He said it's not going to be about who's the most talented team. It's going to be about who's the most connected team. And Jesse Minter so far has been proving that statement in spades. It is wild to think, considering that you mentioned the record for the Chargers currently as it stands right now, and them going up into this matchup in the hardest part of their schedule. To think what they have done defensively in just a matter of weeks and getting to stat lines that we haven't
real
seen
quick,
from.
Sorry, I know I'm interrupting you, but while you're talking, folks, look at the chart and look where the Chargers are.
It's pretty good. But as I mentioned, the stats that Jesse Minter has been able to conjure up for this Chargers defense, not just from their own franchise alone, but just in the NFL in general, through this point of the season, with 2 fifth-round picks at the cornerback position, being down one of your best edge rushers for a majority of the season, rotating in new players, second-year players, free agents, and having virtually all of them produce collectively as a team. You don't have that happen very often in all facets of that. And obviously, it's credit to the front office on top of this, but Jesse Minter, what he has just been able to do has been phenomenal. So getting back to the X's and O's of this, how do you stop Joe Burrow and this Bengals offense? Well, it's not going to be easy. I'll tell you that much. It's not going to be easy. I think Christian Fulton coming back this week is perfect timing for what you're going to need. I'll be interested to see the rotation between, it's obviously you probably have Cam Hart, Christian Fulton as your two outsides, Tarheeb still being in the slot for the bulk of this matchup. We'll see what type of rotation there's going to be. Obviously, Elijah Molden has just turned into a absolute baller and a chess piece for this defense in terms of where you can put him, whether you're keeping him at the safety position or at the cornerback, however you want to flex him, because he can technically play both. Agent Zero, Deion Henley, is just coming into his own so beautifully and is adding such a strength to the middle of the Chargers defense. And defensive line, Dan, this is where it's going to be key. Joey Bosa had talked about this earlier on this week in terms of his snaps increasing. He was officially off the injury report earlier this week. He had talked about over the last 2 weeks that his snaps have kind of been limited around the 20 range. He expects that to jump up to the 30 range this week. Khalil Mack, while he still says that he's going to be playing, is questionable with the groin injury coming into this game. I'm still waiting for the moment that Tremont Morris-Brash is going to be activated, because it's just in terms of general pass rush juice. That is his bread and butter, and that's what he knows how to do. And so I'll be interested to see if this may be the first time that he is activated, just as an insurance policy, not to give any indication that Khalil Mack all of a sudden wouldn't be playing. But I think you need a little bit of an insurance policy as it relates to pass rush for this team. And I think Tremont Morris-Brash would do well at that. But Dan, interior defensive line, we talked about the Achilles heels as it relates to the Chargers offense. And as we were mentioning, the interior of their offensive line is where they have been weakest. Well, Cincinnati's offensive line as a whole isn't much better. And they can be exploited. So whether we're talking about it being Bosa or Mack off the edge, or if we're talking about Morgan Fox playing in the middle, or the way that Tuli Tuipulotu has been playing over these last few weeks with the 5 sacks that he's had now on the season, you saw Poona Ford getting after the quarterback last week. If you could get more pressure up the middle, that's going to be such a huge indicator of how the Chargers can set the pace against this Bengals defense, or this Bengals offense. You can make Joe Burrow uncomfortable in the pocket. Again, the offensive line for the Bengals is definitely exploitable, and you don't see much out of the Chargers interior. It's all about the edge, or, Derwin James coming off of a safety blitz, just in terms of pressures. But if you could start getting the interior of this Chargers defense to come in, crash the pocket, take away the run game, however you can figure to do it, that's going to change the entire dynamic of what Joe Burrow is able to do, how the receivers are going to end up getting free, how the running game is going to be dictated. That's going to change everything. So I think that that's a big X factor in this game. Outside of that, we mentioned Chase Brown, who's had 8 touchdowns in the last 8 games for him. T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, just playing at another worldly level. He is earning every penny in that Brinks truck that is currently backing up to his house right now. But Dan, quietly, Mike Gesicki has turned it into a nice tight end option for them. So again, we talk about the plethora of weapons that Cincinnati has. There's a lot to defend for this Chargers team to take notice of. And as Jesse Minter said, sleepless nights, and he is not wrong.
Yeah, you mentioned the offensive line is a little suspect. I was looking at PFF again. They're not the Bible, but they can kind of show little trends or things to kind of keep in mind. In true pass blocking sets this year, Alex Kappa, Cordell Volson, and Amarius Mims all under 50 grades. Kappa and Volson are under 40 in true pass blocking sets, with 187 of them. So the 2 guards and one of the tackles aren't great. And so this could mean Poona Ford. This could mean Tyler Tart. This could be a Morgan Fox game. We're going to see maybe stunts with Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack going inside. The offensive line is suspect. The offensive line is suspect on this team. And I'll get to it. I'll get baited here for a second. Folks in the chat are talking who's better, Joe Burrow versus Justin Herbert.
Oh, come on. Are we still doing this? This
is what I'm saying.
Herbert conversation all over again?
We're not doing this.
No,
because if you asked every Bengals fan and every Chargers fan, and you gave them truth serum, they would all say their respective quarterback is better. You can't say that about other people talking about which quarterback is better when truth serum is involved. They are both fantastic quarterbacks. Both fan bases would not trade them for anybody. And 1-2, 2-1, who cares? It really doesn't matter.
There's a reason why this game was flexed into the primetime matchup, because you have two stud quarterbacks playing the way that they're playing right now.
Yeah, so we're not
records may not indicate it on either side, but they're both playing very, very well right now.
I will say it is fascinating to see Joe Burrow start getting questioned now, or not being questioned as being great, even though they're not winning. But that was Justin Herbert's Achilles heel, and everybody was saying he wasn't good because he wasn't winning. Weird how it doesn't fit on both sides. Gary Rockwell with Khalil Mack limited. Joey has to play more snaps, ? Gary, thank you for the $5 donation. Again, if you guys have any super chats, we'll put them right to the front. That's how it works. Money pays bills. How do you feel about Joey Bosa? You heard Jim Harbaugh last game say, oh, he's back after the sack. Are you feeling okay? Do you feel like they need to have Joey in more snaps?
I mean, I think that this is again, what the Chargers have been able to do as Joey has been ramping himself up. It's been great. And you look at the sack that he had last week against the Titans, that looked like Bosa getting healthier in terms of him just basically blasting his way through two players just to get to the quarterback. That tells me the signs are pointing in the right direction. Now with him even saying himself that he expects his snaps to increase into the 30s or the mid 30s this week, it's another great indicator. I think it's going to be key, Dan, especially with, Khalil Mack is just everybody's favorite spirit animal in terms of how he approaches the game. I think if he honestly had two broken legs, he would still find a way to be out there on the field. But, there was all of that talk that he wasn't going to be missing the Titans game, and then he goes out and he plays the first 4 snaps on defense and doesn't play another snap after that for the remainder of the game. And maybe that was more so on being cautious and not wanting to further any possible injury taking place. And whichever way you look at it, you may just find yourself in a similar situation with Khalil Mack, that he seems himself in limited snaps, which is where I go again as it relates to the insurance policy for pass rushers. And yes, it's great to see Tuipulotu as far as what he has been able to do over these past several weeks. Bud Dupree had a nice game in terms of just one series alone against his former team, the Titans, where he got 2 sacks, and it's nice to see that. But in terms of just having another option, in terms of someone who is specialty is getting after the quarterback, I think you still need a little bit more juice there. So we'll see when ultimately the activations come out later today. If there is any elevations from the practice squad as it relates to Tremon Morris-Brash, we'll see. But yes, I mean, in terms of Joey playing more snaps, I think it's a good sign just moving forward. Couldn't be better timing considering what Khalil Mack is going through with his groin injury right now. And hopefully you'll still be able to produce against this Bengals offensive line.
Yeah, we heard Jesse Minter talk about the strength of having depth at many positions, but edge specifically, when you got 2 dominant edge rushers, and you can argue you're getting close to having 3 because Tuli's an animal. There is a distinct advantage to be able to rotate guys in and out, keep them healthy, keep them less likely to be injured because they're playing less snaps. There's an advantage to that. And when you add in the versatility of the defensive line as a whole, with guys like Morgan Fox, with how Tyre Tart and Poona Ford have been playing lately, Tito has been coming on of late. They also got Bud Dupree, who's not really being mentioned often. They've got a rotation where they can afford to let guys like Khalil Mack, who may be nursing something, or Joey Bosa, who may be nursing something, to sit out a bit. That's a good thing. I get the worry of aggravating the groin, especially when you have it on both sides. That sucks. You hope. And again, you got to put faith in this Chargers team because they have managed injuries well so far this season. Yep. So who are we to question them? Deion Henley comes into the chat. Big game Henley coming in. Dicker the kicker. Yeah. If you don't know, now you know. Dan Henley has officially entered the Pro Bowl chat. You're seeing it nationally now. And the kid is just insane. And we saw it for how long, how amazing he is. He's going to be big. He's huge in coverage. And this is a coverage game against Joe Burrow and company. Any other kind of key matchups here on defense for the Chargers before we go to another voicemail and go to predictions?
I mean, Deanna, it starts everything with Jamar Chase right now. I will be interested to see how Jesse Minter is going to come up with his coverage schemes for him. And yes, a lot of this is going to be dictated as if the pass rush is able to get after Joe Burrow, that's going to mess up everything and make things easier for the secondary. But just in terms of taking him out of the game.
But don't forget about Higgins.
I'm not forgetting about Higgins at all. But everything starts with number one for the Bengals as it currently stands. So it's not a easy task by any means. I think given, you take away the 2 touchdowns that Calvin Ridley had last week, and considering the fact that you've had Cam Hart and Tarheeb still essentially be your 2 starting corners for this team, says a lot for what they've been able to do over the last several weeks since Asante Samuel Jr. has been out, since Christian Fulton's been out. Now you're starting to get healthier in the secondary. And now with their snaps under their belt, you've got 2 big-bodied corners now with Cam Hart and Christian Fulton going up against this team. So how are you going to take them away? How are you going to limit their production? Obviously, you don't want anything to get deep. You don't want to have Jamar Chase bust open for one of these deep shot passes that he was able to do against 2 games in Baltimore and just light up the scoreboard. So how are you going to prevent that? Be interested to see what the coverage is between Alohi Gilman, Elijah Molden, and Derwin James. It'd be interesting to see how Jesse Minter prioritizes because you have a plethora of weapons to cover. I don't think you can afford to go one-on-one. That would just be a death sentence, honestly, if you did that. So how are you going to cover them in the secondary? But again, if you can get pressure to Joe Burrow and limit that running game with Chase Brown as productive as he's been, that's going to change everything in terms of what they are going to be able to do downfield and take that away.
I mean, I get your sentiment of why why Jamar Chase scares you. I mean, the guy's
should scare anybody the way
he's 19 yards away from 1,000 yards going into week 11. Like, that's insane. In 10 games, he's got almost 1,000 yards already. 87 targets. That's wild. Now, again, some of that is T. Higgins not playing, but T. Higgins is playing now. And so you can't roll coverages. I think Jesse Minter talked about this. You can't just roll to one side anymore because now they got 2 guys. T. Higgins is going to get $25 million plus next season for a reason. The guy's good. So it's going to be tough. Again, Burrow has been balling. No shade here. Burrow has been insane. And it's unfortunate that their defense has let them down. But we know that drill. We've lived that life as Chargers fans and covering this team for far, far too long. Jake, let's get to the voicemail real quick. Sprinkle these in as much as we can.
Hi, guys. Hope everything's fine. And watching the Alabama and LSU game, I realized how much easier life can get when you have 2 elite guards just pushing people away. Well, it would just be great if the Chargers could draft one of those 2 guards from Alabama or from Georgia. They're amazing. Yeah. Thanks.
Jake, he's talking your language. We're talking draft.
Yeah, I mean, I always love talking draft, and to get this conversation going in November historically is virtually been impossible for me to do. Dan Wolkenstein doesn't allow me to do it. We had plenty more to talk about with the Chargers losing at the time, but I still couldn't get draft talk in over the last 3.5 years at this point of the season. So it feels good. Number one, when you look at Alabama in terms of their offensive line, specifically in the interior, it's almost not fair considering who's playing. They're definitely blessed with riches at that position. So yes, and we've gotten this question before in terms of where the Chargers are going to prioritize offensive line. Possibly, would they do it again with another high pick in the draft? Do I think that they're going to prioritize the offensive line to revitalize it? Absolutely. You look at the center position, you look at the guard position. I don't think it's necessarily a guarantee that Trey Pipkins could be back next year, just given the contract situation and what you've seen just from a weakness standpoint. So I think this is an obvious one that whether it's Jim Harbaugh or Joe Ortiz, that you'd want to revitalize it. But you have options. The free agent center class for next year is interesting. Could you go back to that, much like you did with Bradley Bozeman when some of the ones that'll be available? The center class from the draft standpoint isn't as strong as what it was last year. And again, I said it repeatedly. I was very surprised that even on day 3 that the Chargers did not end up taking one of the available centers that was in that class, because I thought last year's was underrated and it was a deep class. It's not so much this year. But in terms of guard, one way or another, whether it's center or the guard position, I think that the Chargers will revitalize that position, be it free agency or the draft. I don't think that they're going to do it as early as some would want, considering that you spent 2 picks on offense last year. I think you're going to want to prioritize a little bit on the defensive side of the ball this year with some of your high picks, and also given the talent that's at that point in the draft as well. So, God, I love me some draft talk. And yes, you'd like to see them strengthen this offensive line just a little bit more, continuing to churn, as Joe Ortiz says. But I think you're going to see that a little bit higher in the draft priorities as it relates to the defensive side of the ball. And then maybe say round 3 and beyond, then you start to look at your offensive line a little bit.
We've got about 10 minutes left in the chat. Let's hear it. We're getting to the prediction standpoint. Give us a bold prediction. Give us your Chargers predictions for final score. We'll put them in here while we discuss ours. A quick comment here, Jake. People would rather talk about how afraid the Chargers' top 5 defense should be of Chase and Burrow, and how the Bengals' bottom tier defense should be afraid of Herbert and JK. Funny. Now, again, for context, I don't think anybody would argue that this Chargers offense has not been as good as this Bengals defense. They've gotten better, for sure. They've gotten healthier, for sure. They're trending in the right direction, absolutely. But there's a reason why people are scared of the Bengals offense. So, yeah, I get why more people are talking about it. But
it's not indicative of their record, considering the talent that's on that team. It's yes. I understand what this question's saying.
I get it.
I think it's it's wanting to give a little bit more credit to the Chargers defense, which it should, and as opposed to what the Bengals defense has surrendered over the past few games, that they can light up the scoreboard, but it hasn't resulted in a win-loss record the way that they would have wanted it to. Again, you just look at both sides of coin here. Which team is going to be able to execute their plan better than the other? And when you have an elite receiver like Jamar Chase, whether it's the best defense, whether you're talking about Kansas City's defense, the Chargers defense, whichever defense, they're still going to be talking about how you stop Jamar Chase, because Jamar Chase is playing out of his mind right now. And you have to take note of that. With the Chargers, they don't have that elite number 1 type of guy. There is no Jamar Chase on the Chargers team. But they have found ways to win, and that is what has been the impressive aspect of their current record as it stands right now. And they are playing well. Justin Herbert is arguably playing the best ball of, his NFL time right now. So let's just see what happens when you weigh these two things together. Again, the X factor here, and the thing that Dan and I have been harping on for essentially since Jim Harbaugh was hired, is the term preparation. That is something that has eluded the Chargers team for the last 3.5 years, especially defensively. I think that they have course corrected by a mile as it relates to preparation and game planning and in-game adjustments in terms of what they're able to do. Ultimately, I think that that's going to be the X factor for this game.
Preparation O, and preparation D equals preparation W.
I mean, not to be too on the nose, but you could also say preparation H as it relates to Harbaugh. So, yes. I mean, however you want to spin it.
Yes. Salty Beer. Who else is going to the game, losing their voice and calling out sick Monday? LFG. You heard Coach Harbaugh call out the fans, talk about how exciting that game was against Tennessee. This is a big one.
I think everybody's going to be hyped.
This is a big one.
Sunday Night Football. 2 great teams, 2 great offenses, 2 great quarterbacks. You're going to want to come out for this one.
Yeah, Jake, let's get to it. 5 minutes left here before we get to our bold predictions. Let's do one more voicemail. We're not going to be able to get to all of these. One more voicemail, and then we'll get to our bold predictions.
Hey, guys, one last question. Do you guys think Jesse Miller has head coaching ambitions? Does he really want to be one and done if he gets
I'll pause it. Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes. Jim Harbaugh alluded to it. I know a lot of people don't like hearing this, but he alluded to it on the Pat McAfee show earlier this week to say, like, we might as well have Jesse Minter or enjoy Jesse Minter while we've got him. I know that we would all love to just hand Jesse Minter everything that we've got. We'll give our own right arm to have Jesse Minter stay as the defensive coordinator for this team. I'd be surprised if he stayed, honestly, at this point, given what he's been able to do with this Chargers team, especially if we're talking about a potential playoff performance and how deep they're able to possibly go once it gets to that point. A lot of people were surprised that Ben Johnson ended up staying with the Detroit Lions after the season that he had last year. And look at what he's doing now. He's only just building his case up even more for a potential head coaching position. But as it relates to Jesse Minter, it's going to be hard to ignore record-breaking defenses and putting up stats that teams haven't done in 15, 20 years, regardless of who the opponent is. That's a man that has a connected defense. And if you can build that upon having connectivity and learning from Justin Herbert on how you connect the team, that's just, huge accolades to have when you go to the coaching interviews. And there was a question that was in the chat earlier to say, if Jesse Minter was to leave, who do we believe would be the replacement for him?
Who do you got?
It's Steve Klingscale.
Yep.
100% Steve Klingscale. What he has been able to do with his secondary, I think this would just be an easy transition, considering the fact that Harbaugh, Minter, and Klingscale have all coached together for such a good period of time, and they understand each other's message. Steve Klingscale, if it ultimately came to it, I know a lot of people would be disappointed to see Jesse Minter walk, even though he's earned it. But Steve Klingscale would be the easy replacement. I think that he could be able to pick up this defense exactly where Jesse Minter would leave it and be able to still have it produce it in a good way.
Okay, one more, Jake. I'm going to try to get one more voicemail in here, and then we can go rapid fire with predictions.
Hey, what's up, guys? Big fan here from Houston, Texas, Big H. I just wanted to say Harbaugh has unleashed this defense.
I see what he did there.
Obviously, we have a pretty hard slate coming up, and defense is going to be put to the test. But I'm pretty confident, as long as the offense, puts 20 points on the board, we have a pretty good chance in all these games. Dion Henley looks really, really good. I think he can be a star in this league in maybe a year.
I'll cut it off because I got going. But yeah, people are confident.
Dan, you look at Dan Henley's last season, it's essentially kind of a redshirt season for him. Because let's remember what this linebacking core, the starters were for a bulk of last year. It was Eric Kendricks and it was Kenneth Murray. And we were all waiting for that. We were all waiting for that moment that they were going to start giving Deion Henley some more meaningful snaps. It didn't end up happening that way. But damn, it's pretty amazing when you have going into your second year that not only do you get Jesse Minter as your defensive coordinator, but you get to learn from one of the best linebackers to ever do it in Navarro Bowman. All of these things have translated into the play that Dan Henley is putting out on the field, and he is producing extremely, extremely well right now.
No Darth Dan this week?
No,
question
Dan,
mark?
you have uncharacteristically been positive this week.
I mean, I wouldn't say so. Okay, here's Darth Dan moment. You talk about tethering hope and expectations to reality here for a second. I hope Jesse Minter can stay another year. I hope that he's loyal to Jim Harbaugh and they have a handshake agreement that he's going to stay until they win the chip. I hope. The reality is he's a damn good defensive coordinator. And he has all other teams needing defenses saying, hey, that guy's pretty good. And he did it in 1 year. He can do it with us too. So again, hope versus reality. You choose. Jake.
Look, under your barometer of Darth Dan moments, that was pretty damn weak. I'm not going to let you get away with that one. Darth Dan moments, no. That doesn't go in the Hall of Fame of Darth Dan moments.
Krista Guzman says it's all about the money. All right, Jake, it's all about the money. Predictions, bold predictions, and game predictions before we get out of here.
Bold predictions. I don't want to piggyback off some great bold predictions, by the way, that I've seen in the chat. I don't want to piggyback off of those because I know I've seen people talk about GJ Chark, and if he actually comes back and gets a touchdown, that'd be a great bold prediction to have. I do want to kind of stick on the offensive side of the football. There's something about it that I'm feeling this week in terms of offensively, because as much as the Chargers defensively want to make a statement, I feel like I've been drifting a lot with the defensive bold predictions a little bit over the past several weeks. So I want to flip it to the other side of the ball. I'm not going to go DJ Chark. I'm not even going to go Ladd McConkey. I'm going to say Quentin Johnson gets his second 100-yard game of his career. Dose touchdowns.
Can one of them be like a Moss type too, just so we can get that meme out there more?
Let's not go too bold. All right, let's not go too bold. Let's just leave it at that.
I just want to see him just take the cereal off the top of a helmet for the touchdown.
Let's not go too bold.
That would be peak euphoria.
Good morning, happy coffee, and coffee beans to you. But let's not go be that bold.
Let's see. Kevin Koenig says 80% of the money is on the Bengals money line and +2. Started at -1.5. Now it's 2.5. Reverse line movement in our favor. We win and cover. That's the bold prediction. We win and cover. Thomas Hawley says Scott Matlock touchdown, maybe.
If Scott Matlock continues to play the way that he's being, let's coin the phrase Scott Matblock, and let's go to work. Scott Matlock. I think people have already used that before. If I'm right, I think it's Chargers chat that it's. I think I've heard them use it once or twice, but it needs to be trademarked by Scott specifically because he's just getting better and better every week.
Robert D says DJ Chark has a reception. Wow. And Radford has Rager getting a touchdown. Oh, Rager rushing touchdown would be fun. I think we're going to see a Darius Davis touchdown this week. I'm not sure if it's on offense or special teams, but I think it's going to happen. Gus Edwards, bold prediction here from Krista Guzman. I hope so. Gus Edwards last week looked like a different human than he did earlier in the season. I almost wanted to say the Chargers bold prediction of keeping it under 20 for the defense, but that's a tall. That's a very tall task against this team.
Very tall task.
But again, this Chargers defense is not what this Bengals offense has looked like or looked at the last couple months. So
no, it is not.
The Bengals offense hasn't been great against great defenses, or heck, defense is not as great as the Chargers, but we'll see. Final score, Jake. A lot of folks in the chat are putting a dub on the Chargers. What's that you?
Traditionally, Dan. Traditionally, I was going to say I would be terrified of a game like this just because of us not talking about, or the lack thereof, of preparation. And just even cycling through this, Dan, look at this just for an example. The last time there's only been, I'm just looking through this just to refresh my memory here, but there has only been 2 times this entire season that the Bengals have scored less than 20 points. Twice. Somehow in the Giants game, it was 17-7. That was that final score. Then you got to the first game of the season. That's when it was 16-10 and the Patriots beat them. Since then, they have scored 20 points or more in the rest of their games. That's why we talk about the tall task that Jesse Minter has in front of him, considering what his defense has been able to yield to opposing teams, which is great. So I'm not going to say that this is going to be another one of the Jesse Minter specialties. However, and let's just say in terms of points allowed, but I got to believe that Jesse Minter has just been burning the night oil on both sides of the candle, any which way he can, to prepare for this game defensively. And when you talk about the weapons that we have mentioned in terms of the Chases, the Higgins, the Gesicki's, the Browns, the Burrows, to take away from putting up points in this game, it's huge. But I still think that the Chargers are going to have their best offensive output. And you're going to have to, because it may turn into one of these high-scoring games, and something that the Chargers have not been used to the entirety of this season. So I'm going to say 35-27 Chargers.
35. They get into the 30s. I'm going to go 31-24. I'll go 31-24 Chargers. I do think the offense is getting right. I think they're starting to click. I think getting Gus back has been good. Sawyer, I think, has been something for them. Greg Roman's understanding more and more what the team could do. Justin's healthy. The receivers are actually all healthy now. This is what this Chargers offense was designed to be. And you saw it flex itself against this Titans team last week. 31-24. Chargers get to 7-3, which, whoa, getting into the Harbaugh. This is fun. Bull fam, y'all are the best. We had a ton of folks in here with their coffee or whatever they're drinking this early in the morning, wherever you are. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, if you have not already done so, please do us a favor, hit the like and subscribe. Takes you 10 seconds to do it. We also have the giveaway. We'll be announcing it tomorrow before the game. The Storm is Coming hat. Go to X. You'll see it on the pinned tweet. All you got to do is, I think, retweet, show a sub screenshot. You're good to go. We'll be doing more giveaways. If they win this one, Jake, we're doing a signed jersey giveaway the moment this game ends.
Be prepared.
You heard it here first. So it's a big one. Jake, anything else you want to tell the great friends before we head on out of here for the weekend and you enjoy the rest of your vacation?
I got to go wake up. I got to go get breakfast. I still did not sleep well. But again, I'm in a different time zone, so my internal clock is just completely off. But it's good to wake up with all of you this morning and talk a little bit of Chargers football before a big primetime matchup. So as Dan and I have mentioned plenty of times, we love doing live shows with you guys. We appreciate the feedback and the comments and the interaction throughout the entirety of the show and in social media as well. So appreciate every single one of you guys. And hopefully we will be gathered again on Monday and talking about a Chargers victory.
323-902-7586 is the number to the Chargers Unleash hotline. Let's get some hype. Let's get some energy into these voicemails, or maybe some caffeine, something. Step it up, folks. Come on. But until then, for Jake Hefner, Shakas and Mahalos, you can find him at Jake D. Hefner, myself at Dan W. Sports. Thank you so much for tuning in. Enjoy your weekend. Go Chargers. And we'll talk to you next time on Chargers Unleashed. Have a great weekend, everybody.